If you're excited for the Dead Space remake, I got a bunch of new information for you. Let's talk about it. Well, today marks the 14th anniversary of the original release of Dead Space. 14 years, that's pretty crazy, right? Well, the team behind the remake just had a stream and they wanted to showcase a couple of new features coming to the remake. One thing they really wanted to emphasize that this is not just a graphical remake. Yes, the game looks way better than the original Dead Space, but they wanted to keep the overall styling of the game. But they're using the graphics to increase intensity, increase the look. Even the creatures like the slashers are going to look a little bit different every single time because they really wanted to emphasize that this ship was taken over. That these people that you're fighting were once crew members, and their way of acting, their way of attacking, their way of movement is going to represent who they were on that ship. Which is pretty cool. Those are the little touches a game like that, especially a horror game, really needs to emphasize the scenario that the main character is set in. But one big thing they said, with the greater capacity of today's technology, now the entire ship is seamless. Yes, there's going to be some scripted events, but there's no more major cutscenes. It's pretty much seamless from beginning to end. And if you wanted to travel to another part of the ship and you have the right tools to do so, you can do it. If you're in an open area of the ship that used to be not really accessible, that used to walk on bridges and not, unless you were in a zero gravity situation, you couldn't really fly around. Now Isaac could just fly around if he has the jetpack, which opens up new combat scenarios, opens up more options for the slashers and the other creatures that come after you, and makes the world and the ship feel grander and bigger than it once was. Also, they reworked a lot of the sound, so the sound will adjust depending on where you are at, if you're flying, if you're in a small area, a large area, what you're fighting against, and in a big change, Isaac actually talks. If you remember, in the first Dead Space, Isaac really never talked or talked at all. I mean, you heard his grunts and things of that nature, but he really wasn't talking. He was basically a silent protagonist for the most part. Well, this time around, he will talk, but to keep it more realistic, Isaac is only going to talk when he's being talked to, or when he's trying to figure something out of something that he's more of an expert in. So that makes a lot more sense, because why would he be babbling to himself randomly as he's walking around the ship? If someone's talking to him, he'll respond. I mean, that's a human thing to do, which again makes you more connected to Isaac, but also keeps the tension of walking around the ship, because of course Isaac is going to be as quiet as possible because he doesn't want to bring any attention to himself. And a feature that the remake team really wanted to emphasize is the Intensity Director. The Intensity Director is an AI that's going to monitor your progress in the game, not only moving forward in the game, but even if you backtrack. It's going to adjust the lighting, the sound, the encounters, the amount of enemies you go against, and everything in the game to make sure a certain level of intensity is always kept. And that also means sometimes putting you in a situation where you think you're in imminent danger and nothing happens, because they want you to keep you on your toes. Also, the tram was a big thing in the first Dead Space, that you really had to use it to get from one area to another. But like I said, since the graphical fidelity is much higher, and now you have a lot more tools to your disposal, the tram is now an option instead of a major thing. It doesn't mean that there won't be scripted events now that the ship is basically seamless and you can move about as you feel. It's going to be more like there's going to be certain scenes that are scripted, but for the most part, it's either going to be crafted areas for the player to encounter, or the Intensity Director is going to be throwing wild cards at you along the way to keep you on your toes. Overall, I think these are really cool things to announce, because a game like Dead Space needs to be done correctly if you're going to do a remake, and it seems like this team is dedicated to not only improving upon the art style and feeling of the original Dead Space and just reworking some of the limitations it had back when it released 14 years ago. If you wanted the collector's edition, you could get it from Limited Run Games, and the coolest thing from the collector's edition is that there's a full-on helmet, the same helmet that Isaac wears, and it lights up and it is wearable. So it's not just a piece that you have in your desk, it is a wearable light-up helmet that I'm sure people who do cosplay and whatnot will probably want to get. So, are you excited for the Dead Space remake? And as always, thank you for being awesome.